So the other thing I want to talk with you guys about today, welcome to my channel, guys, is have you ever wondered how come God is so long suffering? He's so patient. There are people who have been sinning, have been very rambunctious, rebellious, evil, have done stuff and been doing stuff, and they are not dead. They are waking up every day. There are people who have been sinning and doing certain things for years. Years. If someone asks for forgiveness, God will forgive them over and over again. His grace and His mercies, His forgiveness, His patience, it's beyond comprehension. And so that's why you find people who will flip the Lord the bird and curse God and say all kinds of things, use foul language with God and say all sort of abusive things about God, and they're just a certain way. They're abusive to people, and they just keep going and going and going and going, and they're doing stuff, and someone, they kill the Christians and nothing happened to them, and they're still alive and they're thriving and they're just going and they're gaining power, and everything's just going. It just seems like they're getting away with things. But have anybody ever really pondered why? Why is God so patient? Why does He give so many? Why does He give us so many chances? If you think of all the years that was spent, once you reach the age of accountability, how many years did you spend sinning and doing wrong? Let's see. If I counted even from my 20s, that's at least 10 years I was doing stuff wrong. And I could still add some years before that. But God was patient with me. He's patient with other people. Why, guys? Yes, He loves us. But guys, here's the thing. There's a flip side to it too. I think He's that way with us because the wrath of God is horrible. I believe the wrath and judgment of God is a terrible, terrible thing. The Word of God says it is a terrible thing to fall into the hands of God. And I think that flip side is something that's so horrible. It's beyond our imagination. And the Lord will give us 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. He's giving people all those years. Because if in all that time, people don't turn around and get their act together, and they end up in eternal damnation, what's there, they're going to see why God gave them so much grace and mercy. To fall into the hands of God, or there's people who's alive, they didn't die, but they're experiencing the wrath of God. I believe the wrath of God can cause you to end up in a mental institution. I am not saying that people who are there, that's necessarily what has happened to them. I'm simply saying, hear me out again. I am not saying that people who ends up having to get help from psychiatry or a psychiatric ward, that they're there because of God's judgment. I'm saying that I believe to fall into the hands of God, His judgment, it can send you there. That can be one of the things in your mind. If He removes His hand, His hedge of protection from you, and now the powers of darkness begin to inflict your mind, it can drive you there. I believe it can keep you in absolute fear. I believe you can have just, it's just dread. There are people who are alive that because they've sinned so much that the Lord took His hedge from them and turned them over to the powers of darkness that they entertain. And the powers of darkness are very wicked and evil. And there could be a time that He will allow you to experience that. and prayerfully by his mercy, he'll pull you back in. But I feel that there's absolute terror on the flip side of God. Not that he is evil, but there's a flip side. And thus the reason why his forgiveness goes such a long way. His grace and his mercy goes such a long way. Such a long way. Someone could curse him and just on a regular basis curse God, and they don't die. They could do that for years and he does nothing. I would be very afraid. I'm not saying that we're supposed to be sitting here being terrified of God, but I think a lot of times people underestimate God. It's just like how they do in the natural. If someone is patient and is understanding, there's people that will take advantage of that person. I remembered watching an episode of The First 48 Hours, and there's a man who came up from Cuba, and him and his girlfriend was running a nightclub. This man has never had any issues, no history of anything, no criminal record, quiet man. But his wife went outside. She's the manager of the club now. There's an altercation or something that was going on outside. His girlfriend, not his wife, his girlfriend is pregnant. She runs the club along with him. And there was an altercation out at the front. So she went out there and she was talking to them, I guess, as far as I can remember, trying to get them to, calm down. She was just trying to talk to them peaceably because they had a surveillance camera to show it. And he was out there too. He went out there and one of those guys or females pushed his pregnant girlfriend. And if I'm remembering clearly, that quiet man, ain't never bothered nobody, went inside the club, came back out a few seconds later, and just point blank shot the girl in the head. He killed like 3 people, just shot them point blank. Pop, pop, pop. And just walked back in. But he was always quiet. There's somebody that can hear the story, and you know somebody like that. They didn't bother anybody. They were the quiet kid in school, and somebody just kept bothering them. And one day you learn that they actually know how to fight because their rage was just like, rah. But why would they pick on that person? Because they're quiet. Why would they take advantage of that person that's patient? There are plenty of crime documentaries, criminal documentaries and investigations where the person was quiet and unassuming and their girlfriend just kept cheating on them or something like that, and they just do something crazy. So there's something in some humans to want to take advantage of a person that's calm and long-suffering. And so they do the same thing with God. But guys, be very afraid. Begin to have a healthy fear and respect and reverence for God, because there's a reason why he's that way with us. Because none of us, God forbid, to be standing before God and hearing, "Depart from me." There's nothing and no one that can say, "Lord, you just gave me 1 hour to get it right." God doesn't wants us to live in fear, but there has to be some sort of a wake-up call, a realization of who he is. There's a reason why he forgives us so much. Yes, he does love us, but there's a reason why he forgives, the reason why he's so long-suffering, the reason why someone would live 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years and still get forgiveness. Because his wrath is nothing that any one of us can ever imagine. All right, guys.